All right. So today was a special day. Finally, authorities were able to capture, um, I believe the guy maybe 32 years old, but Brazilian native Danelo Cavalcante in Pennsylvania. Some of you who have been following the story may have heard this already, but those of you who have not, um, Cavalcante basically had been on the, well, initially he had been on the run from the country of Brazil. He was accused of murder, found guilty. He murdered a guy in 2017. Somehow he escaped. He ended up making his way from Brazil to Puerto Rico. And from Puerto Rico, I'm assuming he probably got a hold of a fake ID, maybe a passport as well, and was able to make his way to America. And he had been residing for the last couple of years in the state of Pennsylvania. I believe at that time he had been working several little jobs, and he met a girl. He was dating a girl who had two kids, and one day he decided, unfortunately, he stabbed the chick 40 times in front of her two kids. So he had been sentenced to life in prison, and he, while at the prison for a couple of weeks, this Pennsylvania prison, it took him about 2 weeks. Had just got there. He was able to escape from the prison. He did some old Spider-Man type of shit and crab walked up the wall, was able to get to the roof and over barbed wire fences as well, and escape. And he had been on the run since August 31st. And today, fortunately, authorities were able to capture him. Um, Lieutenant Colonel George Bivens of the Pennsylvania State Police. Seems like every day they had been holding a press conference, just to keep the public abreast of the, just latest details of things that has been happening. But again, today they held another press conference just to confirm that he was captured, even though there were video and photos floating around of him being caught and taking pictures with the special forces team members who was able to take him into custody. But Colonel Bivens basically, just kind of gave the rundown of what occurred. And so apparently, what kind of led up, finally leading up to his capture, they stated that, yesterday evening, there was a burglar alarm that went off at a property that was within the perimeter, because they had basically kind of made this, I would say, maybe 2 to 3 mile perimeter around a certain area, with police and different law enforcement teams, to make sure that if he does, kind of come out of the wooded area, the forest, then there will be people around the perimeter that'll be able to spot him and capture him. However, there was a burglar alarm that went off, which was inside the perimeter. Colonel Bivens basically stated that our people investigated that. However, when they investigated that particular property last night, they didn't find Cavalcante there or anyone else at that particular property. However, it did bring it brings some of the law enforcement people in that area to just be on the lookout, and be prepared and ready to go if they did spot him. So they basically told, several tactical teams to go in that area. Once they got that ping from the burglar alarm, there was an aircraft that was up in the air, and the aircraft actually was able to pick up a heat signal around 1 o'clock in the morning. Um, And basically, with that infrared heat signal, they knew definitely that more than likely, 99%, it was going to be the person that they were after, Cavalcante. However, they did state that at that time, the weather became a little bad. It was raining heavily and thundering. So they did tell, of course, airplanes, helicopters, things of that nature, they usually um, are told not to fly in inclement weather. However, luckily the aircraft was able to pick up a heat signal prior to them having to depart from the sky. Um, Basically, there were these tactical teams and police officers around the clock in this particular limited area that they were focusing in on. And then they kind of continued to, survey the area early this morning around 7 o'clock, 7 to 8 o'clock a.m. And then they basically moved in. They moved in on that area very, very quietly. They did, of course, they wanted to surprise Cavalcante. So what they did was, they assumed that Cavalcante probably knew there was law enforcement in the area. So Cavalcante basically began to crawl through the thick underbrush. And he also had the rifle that he had stolen from a property, I believe a day or two ago. He had the rifle with him as well, but he was able to start crawling, and that's when they released the canine, and the canine was able to subdue Cavalcante. The canine did not, brutally attack Cavalcante. This canine is actually trained to only just subdue, basically grab a hold of, or, do what it can to prevent the inmate or the suspect basically from leaving the location. So the dog, successfully was able to do that. The dog did leave like a minor bite wound, but they did have medical personnel on the scene that was able to treat Cavalcante when he was picked up. From that is when, word started coming out. He was captured. Of course, media was already in the area. Law enforcement, these tactical teams, they did do a great job. They was proud of their work. So Colonel Bivens did speak to that, because there had been, some of the public who felt as though, it was probably, a little bit cringy to see law enforcement actually taking and posing with the suspect, um, for a photo op. You know what I'm saying? However, I can kind of understand. I mean, if you're into true crime or just look at these type of things, especially in different countries, you would always see when they capture, their suspect. You oftentimes do see law enforcement taking photos with the suspect. They did say that Cavalcante did somewhat put up a fight. However, nobody was injured. Um, I kind of want to know the details of what that means. He stated that he was forcibly taken into custody. So I really want to kind of get into details. Maybe eventually down the line, someone would do an interview and will, further explain what that entailed. I also um, wonder if any of the law enforcement individuals had maybe like a GoPro camera or a body cam strapped on them. I truly want to see what that capture looked like on video. So maybe if they did capture video of this incident, that they will, you know, months down the line, release it to the public. From that point, they took them, they put him in the back of a paddy wagon. You can see video of him on the news where they had to, basically strip him of his clothing. They cut off the Philadelphia Eagles sweatshirt that he had on, as well as the pants. Um, that he had on as well. They kind of do that just to make sure that before we drive off, he doesn't, have any weapons or anything hidden on him. So from there, he was transported to their Avondale police station for further processing and interview. And then, from that point, he's going to be transferred to a maximum security state correctional institute. And that is where he will begin to serve his life sentence. So, as we know, since he is an escapee and a, convicted felon murderer of two individuals at this point, we know that he probably will be housed in solitary confinement for a very long time. Usually, when prisoners have to be confined to solitary spaces, it's not the best treatment in the world. It's oftentimes much worse than them being with the general population. So, you know, I don't really have any sympathy for this young man. It is kind of, a little bit surprising that he was able to elude law enforcement for 2 weeks straight. We have heard of stories in the past where I believe I heard on a interview that I forgot, maybe Timothy McVeigh, I believe is his name, who was considered the Unabomber. They said when he kind of escaped, he was able to elude authorities for 5 years. He was able to stay in the forest area of North Carolina and survive for 5 years before he was spotted by, I believe, a local police digging in a dumpster behind, I believe, a store, if I'm not mistaken, probably searching for food and whatnot. So that's how he was finally captured. So for this young man to have eluded authorities for about 2 weeks, that is a little bit astonishing. However, there has been an official interview, I believe, through like the Brazilian media outlet where his mother has spoken. And, of course, a mother is going to do whatever they can to make excuses for their kids. So basically, in that interview, the mother basically was stating, it was his upbringing where, that because they kind of grew up, he was raised, in the very rural areas of Brazil. And she said that his survival tactics, he learned from a childhood. They are poor, you know what I'm saying? And some days they couldn't have food to eat, you know what I'm saying? So they had to do what they had to do. So I'm sure that definitely, added on to Cavalcante's, you know, ability to be able to survive so many days with just limited resources. However, I know that the community, the citizens of what is it, Poughkeepsie and those surrounding areas are very much thankful that he is back in custody as of now. And yeah, everybody can just definitely, relax or breathe a sigh of, relief that he has finally, you know, back in handcuffs and going to do his time in prison. Do I believe that eventually it might not be this year, it might not be next year, it may be 10 years from now, but will Cavalcante attempt to escape prison again if he's ever given the opportunity or figure out a way to do so? Yes, I wholeheartedly believe that this probably would not be the last time that we may hear something of the sort coming from this young man. And yeah, because, you know, in prison, all you have is time. All you have is time to think about, your next thing, your next steps. What are you gonna do? And I'm sure this young man is probably going to figure out some kind of way to try to escape from prison again. But I know as of now, they're gonna have him locked all the way down. So, he definitely won't be able to attempt it no time soon.